Carla and welcome to my channel, Carla K Art. I am an artist that specializes in hand-painted silk, and in today's video I'm going to be doing a dragon on a silk bandana. So when you're making a hand-painted silk piece, the very first step is actually coming up with a drawing. And that I did the other day. I submitted that to the person purchasing the piece, commissioning the piece, and they approved that drawing. The next thing I need to do is put that drawing on the silk, and I do that with pencil very lightly because I don't want the pencil marks to actually stain or be a permanent part of the art piece. I want them to wash out in the washing process and the fixing process of the dyes. So if you want to know how I do that transfer process, I will put a link here. I did a short how-to video on how I transfer a pencil drawing from a piece of paper to the silk directly, and you can follow this link and see that process in full if that's something that you're really interested in doing. The next thing I need to do is put it on the stretcher frame. It needs to be elevated so that the dyes don't touch the table underneath and travel underneath on the tabletop, and I do that with my stretcher frame, and this frame was designed by my husband to my requirements, gosh, I don't know, 10-15 years ago now. And what it does is it allows me to suspend the silk above the surface of the table, which allows the resist and the dyes that are penetrating the fabric not to actually touch the table and smear, and it creates for great airflow underneath the frame in order for the piece to dry really as quickly as possible. A lot of people ask about the safety pins and in the side of the silk, and I'll just let you know that I've tried lots of different types of specialty clips. Some people use tape and silk pins, and I have nothing against any of those methods. If they work for you, you go for it. I have had times when I was using the silk pins to secure the silk to the edge walls here, and the pins have come loose, and or sometimes there's this hook type device you can use, and those have come loose, and the silk has jerked as a result, and the dye has flipped onto the piece. So from now on, I use the safety pins. I know that some people don't like to use the safety pins, but I find that they work really well. I use really sharp quilting safety pins that quilters use, and stainless steel so there's no rust. And if they at all start to get dye in them or anything like that, I switch them out. So that's how that works. So now I'm going to apply the resist, and there are lots of different types of resists out there. There's wax, which is a resist that a lot of batik artists use, a mixture of paraffin and beeswax. There's now a soy wax, which I'm starting to experiment with myself, and I'll be doing a video shortly on that. There's water-soluble resists that break down in water, so they totally removed from the fabric once you wash it. The things about water-soluble resists that I have some issues with is that the dyes are made of water, so if you're doing a thin line with a resist that dissolves in water, the dye can actually dissolve it if you overload the space, and that can create lots of leaks. The type of resist I'm using for this piece, because there's a lot of detail in it and I want to make sure that the resist line stays steady, is a permanent resist. This particular resist, I've got it in black and clear, is made by Jacquard, and Jacquard makes this permanent resist out of a substance that stays in the silk actually after it's steam set, but if used properly there will not be any feel in the fabric. Some people apply it too thick, and if you apply it too thickly it can be sticky and it can create a feel in the fabric. But if you dilute it with resist dilution material solution to the right consistency for the fabric, you won't even feel it. So I'm going to be using the Jacquard permanent resist for this particular piece. The water-soluble resists, while they do dissolve in water, are really cool because it's very easy to add colors to them. You can add the dyes to the resist, and you can get a remarkable array of colors in the actual resist lines. And I will be doing a video in the future of me doing just that. I'm going to go ahead and start applying this resist, and I'm going to start with the black. And you want to kind of, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to want to work from this side to this side so I don't unintentionally smear the resist. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to dry on the fabric, and you need to make sure that it's sinking through the fabric to work its charm, because Resist, if you didn't already know, works like a fence. It works like a border to prevent the dye from spreading and to prevent two colors from mixing if you choose to use it that way. And I control the thickness of the Resist by how much I squeeze down on this applicator tube. I actually use a pretty thick nub on the top of this. The nub on the top is actually a mechanical pencil head, so of course you can get them in different thicknesses. The thinner ones I find tend to clog with the Resist. They clog really easily, so I tend to stay away from those thinner ones.
So it took me a while to come up with this version of a dragon. I modeled my dragon after something you might see on the prow of a ship. My heritage is from Norway, and I still have a lot of family in Oslo, and several of the family members, my family members, are fishing captains. So I looked to the prow of a ship to get kind of a feel for the type of dragon I wanted. The head is actually modeled after one of my mom's pets, a Rottweiler named General. So the head and the eyes come from a photo, actually, I found of hers, of her dog. The body is that of a salamander. The scales are that from an armadillo. The horns are actually from a pet goat I had as a youth, named Oki. The wings are that of a bat. And if you look closely, they also look like the sails on a sailing ship, on a Norwegian Viking ship. And together, all of these come together to form the image of a dragon that I wanted to see in my artwork that sets it apart from other dragons you might see elsewhere.
So now I need to draw the scales in this dragon, and the scales are going to help show the shape of the dragon's arm as far as how it comes towards you and how it recedes back from you. So the scales, in addition to being a decorative piece, also show the direction of the muscles and whatnot on this dragon.
In order to make this image more interesting to the viewer, I want the scales to be different shapes and different sizes, and I want the lines to have different thicknesses, and I want the scales to be going in different directions to show perspective, to show depth in the drawing and make it look 3D.
Dry, I'll go take a coffee break, and I will come back and talk to you all about dyeing the silk. I'm back after my break, and some things about painting. When I'm painting on the silk, I use a specially formulated dye. It's a dye that's actually formulated to dye silk and wool. And these are often referred to as acid dyes. And these dyes can be diluted with water. And I start using them full strength and then add water to them as I need to create lighter shades. I start actually, this is my palette here, my full palette. I know it's dirty, and that's actually a good thing when it comes to my paint palette. It means that there's lots of colors mixed together, so I get really rich colors because they've intertwined a bit. And I should point out that I actually start with 3 colors: the red, the blue, and then the yellow I use initially has gotten to be a little bit green. But those are my 3 primary colors, and then I use black. And from those 3 colors, I actually mix all the colors in my palette. So I only buy 3 colors of dye, 4 colors of dye, red, yellow, blue, and then black, and then I mix to get all the other colors in my palette. And I point this out because a lot of people compliment me on my use of color, and I think that my color comes across so well because I just start with this really limited palette. The next thing I'll tell you about dyes is it's kind of like working with watercolor. Technically there is no white, so you start with the lightest color and then gradually make it darker because you can't make it lighter again once you've made it dark. For instance, the only way I can get white, like if I wanted white on these wings, would be to actually never put any dye on it and just have the white of the silk show through. So that's one thing to tell you. And then the next thing is that when I apply the dyes, they will actually dry 2 to 3 shades lighter than what you painted them on when they were wet. So you have to keep that in mind. As far as the dyes that I use, I'm currently using a dye that I absolutely love. I've been using it for the last 3 or 4 years. I love it, love it, love it. It's called Tinfix. And I should point out, I don't get paid by anybody for any of the recommendations I give. I don't have any affiliate marketing at this time. I'm just telling you about the tools and the dyes that I just love to use. I use Tinfix. Tinfix is made by Sennelier. Sennelier is in France. Sennelier has decided to discontinue the Tinfix brand, which makes me very, very sad. It makes me very, very sad. So I'm going to have to switch to a new dye. Of the reviews I've read so far for the type of work I do, and due to the fact that I do still have quite a bit of Tinfix dyes left over, I'm probably going to switch to DuPont. And I'm switching to DuPont because DuPont plays nicely with Tinfix, meaning that if I run out of the blue in Tinfix and I start adding DuPont blue to my palette, the colors are still going to blend, the colors are still going to work. Both products are steam set. When I steam set them, they will be color fast. Even if I mix a DuPont and a Tinfix dye together, they're still going to be color fast after I steam set them. And the steam setting rules are fairly much the same for both dyes as I understand it. So 95% chance I'm going to go forward with the DuPont dyes. But right now, everything in here is Tinfix, just to let you know. The next thing I want to talk about a little bit is my brushes. When I was in art school, I had tons of brushes, all different shapes and sizes. But since I've been a working artist these last 4 years, I have learned that there's really only 3 paintbrushes that I go through and I need to buy over and over again. So I'm going to tell you about these 3 brushes now. And these are made by Grumbacher. They're a watercolor brush because painting with dyes is very similar to watercolor. You want a brush that holds the water really well, and you want a brush that applies the color very evenly to your piece. So I use these 3 Grumbacher brushes. I use a round size 12, I use a round size 4, and I use a liner size 4. And I use the professional grade brushes. These are a little more expensive. But as long as you take care of these brushes and use them appropriately, as long as you pull the brushes across the silk and you don't push the brush bristles into the silk, they will last a very long time. In fact, I have some brushes that are 10 to 12 years old that are still doing great. But these 3 brushes are the brushes that I use the most often, and these are the 3 sizes that I introduce to any of the students that come and take lessons here at my studio, that attend any of my workshops. I just think these are the best, and I will go and get some fresh water and we will start dyeing this piece. So I'll be back in just a second. So one of the things I want to point out to you is that in doing this piece, the person who commissioned it has asked me to really model this piece after another piece that I did. And so over here on my left, I have a photograph of that piece.
The person who commissioned this bandana piece saw this large rectangle scarf/wall hanging that I did, but wanted it in a bandana size. So I will be duplicating the type of coloring you see in this piece, monochromatic, all blue.
Because I really want to kind of stick to the theme and the feel of this other piece, and I just have it on my iPad. And again, I'm not sponsored by iPad. But I'm going to go ahead and model it after that piece. Because I already have a piece done, I didn't do any work with this on the computer to determine how I was going to color it in. But when I do pieces like this and I get it to this point, I usually get approval from the person I'm getting the commission from, that they like how it looks. In this case, I've already gotten that permission. And then I will color it in with a program called Procreate on the computer. So I'll take a picture of this, I'll transfer the picture into Procreate, and I'll work with it like a line drawing on Procreate, and I can totally fill it in, send that to the person who's commissioned the piece, and get their approval of whether or not they like how the colors look. And if they like how the colors look, then I proceed forward. But in this particular case, I already know what the client's looking for because they want something very similar to what I've done in the past. So I actually have that photo, if you can see it, right here on my iPad. Now, as I had talked about the dyes, you're going to see I had a lot of dyes in here. I'm only using two, the turquoise blue and the dark navy blue. And then I have some blue that I mixed up the other day that's kind of, it's got a bit of black in it, so it's a bit of a dusty color. So I may end up using that as well. We'll see how that fits in. The darkest areas are actually in the wing. So to show the depth that goes behind the dragon, that the wings are coming out from behind the dragon. So I know that's going to be the darkest area. And in this monochromatic piece, there's also a lot of actual white areas. And monochromatic simply means that there's one color. There's it's blue, and then there's a dark blue and a light blue, but it's all blue. So that's what the monochromatic refers to. So in this particular piece, I think I might actually start with the wings and do the darkest area here and bring it out so you can kind of see how that creates depth. It means I'm going to have to use this really big brush on this particular bandana because there's a lot of detail, and this blue brush brings a lot of paint to the silk, and that might not work in my favor. I'm actually going to add a little bit of black to that. See, I'm going to switch to a smaller paintbrush because I don't want to
One thing I will note about the dyes, I dilute them with water, but I live on a well, so there are no chemicals in my water. If you are trying this at home and you are on city water, you may want to buy distilled water and use that instead. If there's any fluoride or any other chemicals in your water, they will affect the dyes, and you may not get the best product out of that. You're going to want to use distilled water instead.
So that's one area. So you can see how it comes out from the back. That's the furthest part away, and that's the lightest part. So I think what really helps when you're making a monochromatic piece is to mix it. I'll run down the edge of this. And as I add water, his face, but I want the rest of his snout to be lighter than that. This is actually the part that's furthest away, and it comes towards us as we work towards his eye. This is what the piece looks like right now, and I will take a break, and as soon as it's dry, I'll show you how the final piece came out, because it's gonna... Hey everyone! This is what the final piece looks like. This is how it came out. I now need to wait for it to cure, and that takes 24 to 48 hours, and then I have to steam it. Now, if you're interested in how I steam my silk, I will put a link up here, and you can follow it to a short how-to video that I put out on how I steam my silk in a handmade steamer. This particular piece is a commission piece. So once I've steamed it and washed it, it will get mailed off to that person who has commissioned it. But I will be putting the image itself on my Fine Art America site. So if you wish to get this image on printed items, printed on different items, you can check out that site. Which brings me to, if you like this video, please press the thumbs up button down below. If you want to find out whenever I put out a video, you can get notifications if you press the subscribe button. It doesn't cost to subscribe. Subscribe just allows you to get notifications about when I put out new videos. And there's also a little arrow button. And if you press that arrow button, you will get links to my business, including my Etsy site where I sell originals and giclées. You'll get links to my Fine Art America site where I sell prints. And prints are on everything from paper prints that you can frame on and hang, that are framed and you can hang on the wall, to coffee cups, to face masks, to tote bags, to little zipper clutch bags. Really, there's a whole bunch of different items offered, and you can follow that link to my site. Just click on whatever image you like once you follow the link, and then scroll down and you can pick out what items you might like to have. Phone cases, for instance, are included in those items. And then the last link is to my website, and my website includes a gallery of many of my past pieces, so feel free to check that out. And really hope you like this video, really hope you subscribe, and I will see you next time in the art studio. Bye!